When you look at Bruce Lee, you see many different sides. A martial arts master, a Hollywood game changer, an everyman's philosopher. But when you peel back the layers of Bruce Lee, you start to see the man behind the legend, the human being that was Bruce. You see a boy who engaged in fiery rooftop fights against his bittermost rivals, a Hollywood star under tons of pressure who enjoyed experimenting with all types of drugs, a fitness maniac whose workout philosophy stood decades ahead of his time. In Bruce Lee: A Life, Matthew Polly dives deep into both the darkness and the light of Bruce Lee's legacy. And today I'm gonna walk through with you my favorite parts of the book. The cocaine letters, Bruce smoking weed with Steve McQueen, Bruce knocking his teenage rival's teeth out of his head, and more. Come with me on a journey as we explore the wild and way too short burst of light that was the life of Bruce Lee. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back, you glorious heathens, to another solo episode of The Zach Show. This time, we are going to be exploring the life of an absolute legend. He is a Hollywood movie star, or he was rather a Hollywood movie star. He's no longer with us. He was a martial arts master, although some people might say that he wasn't a master, that he looked really good on camera, he looked really good on screen, but he wasn't being tested in competition. He wasn't being tested in real fights. And I don't know, what does being a martial arts master even mean? Does it mean thriving in competition? Does it mean understanding your own body? Does it mean mastering the philosophy of how to defend yourself and inflict pain upon others? Does it mean controlling your own mind, controlling your emotions, controlling your body? What does that even mean? But someone who lived their life in a way to explore not only martial arts, but just living in general, doing drugs, doing, going out in the town and dancing, being a ladies' man, hanging out with some of the most famous people on the planet, giving lessons in martial arts to people that he probably never thought he would have met when he was a young boy in Hong Kong, and doing it with an ego that, it was big. He had a big ego, and he had a will and a drive to show the world what the fuck he was made of. And of course, I'm talking about Bruce Lee. And this is one of my favorite books. It's called Bruce Lee: A Life by Matthew Polly, who I actually had on the podcast a couple years ago. I need to have him back. And this book, I will just pick it up sometimes, flip to a random page, and something will hit me in a way that helps me through the day, in a way that speaks to me for a particular problem that I'm going through. And I'm not even just talking about martial arts, because I myself am a martial arts infant. I've done Muay Thai for two and a half years. I've taken about 10 jiu-jitsu classes. I'm not someone who is fluent in the language of martial arts, though I've dipped my toe in, and I enjoy Muay Thai, so that's why I've kept doing it. But this is a book that speaks to many aspects of life, whether it's relationships, whether it's debauchery, whether it's mental health, whether it's how to think better. Just I'll pick it up and I'll read something. I'll be like, how the fuck does that speak to what I'm going through right now? And it's actually it speaks not only to the life that Bruce Lee lived, at a multifaceted life that was deep on many levels. Both dark and light. A lot of people don't really think about Bruce Lee as a darker character, but Matthew Polly lays out in his book a bunch of different aspects of his personality that seem to dive into both sides of human nature, as any great person does. There's not been a great person to live that has not engaged with the darker aspects of their nature. I'm familiar with that, and I know a lot of you are familiar with engaging in the darker parts of yourself as well. But it not only speaks to the life that Bruce Lee lived, but it speaks to the way that Matthew Polly has written this book and contextualized his life on these pages. And so I want to go through the life of Bruce Lee today, as an exploration, as a celebration. I've got my fall apple pie candle here. So before we start, I'm just going to ask the soul of Bruce Lee floating around in the universe, wherever you may be, to enter the room, to guide us, to embrace us, to push us, to lead us wherever we may head in this conversation. So I'm just going to take a moment of silence right here before we dive into the book and some of my favorite excerpts, because that's the way that I've structured this episode. I've picked out 5 or 6 different excerpts from the book that really spoke to me. And it was really hard to do, but I'm going to go through some of those on the podcast here. And before we do that, let's have a moment of silence. Let the spirit of Bruce Lee enter this realm and guide us through this episode. May he be with us. So the first part of the book that I want to get into is a rooftop fight between Bruce Lee and this other kid from a martial arts rival school. And again, a lot of the background I'm going to talk about before the excerpt, I may not have everything right because I'm not reading directly from the book when I'm talking about it, but I have excerpts pulled out that we'll get into. But some of the background I may not be 100% correct on, which is, why you guys should definitely check out the book. I'm just speaking from memory, reading the book. But Bruce Lee and this other guy, Chung, engage in a rooftop fight. And this is back when Bruce Lee's a teenager. He's probably like 13 or 14 at this point. This is a time when there are a lot of different egos in martial arts. And this is way before UFC. This is, there were like rival martial arts senseis of each craft, of Kung Fu, of Wing Chun, of karate, whatever it is, these different styles. And no one had incorporated all these styles together to, make something like the UFC yet, where you could actually see those styles in play. So there was a lot of rivalry, from what I understand, between these different schools. And Bruce Lee was a student of a certain form of martial arts. I believe he was a student of Kung Fu, and this other student was more of a Wing Chun guy. But we'll get into the actual story. But the vibe of what's happening is that there's a rift between these two rival schools, and they decide to settle it on a fucking rooftop. Like on the rooftop of some apartment building or wherever. There's a bunch of people, there's a crowd of people around that are watching these two fighters just fucking battle their own styles out to settle a feud, which is nuts. Like I couldn't imagine if I was 14 years old and someone else called me out and said, "Hey, I think I could beat your ass. The thing that you're doing doesn't work against what I'm doing. I could kick the fucking shit out of you." And at 14, for me to be like, "Oh, okay, you want to fight? All right, we're not just going to fight. We're going to do it in front of a crowd of all of our friends. We're going to make this public. There's going to be a record in people's memories of whichever one of us gets our ass kicked. And we're going to do it on a rooftop on concrete, and we're going to fucking go. And I'm going to kick your fucking ass." Like I could not identify with 10% of that confidence when I was 14 years old. I don't even have that style of confidence now, let alone being like a teenager, putting on a show, putting on a performance, really, because that's what it is, of trying to kick some dude's ass on this public platform. So let's dive into this martial arts rivalry between Bruce Lee and this other student, Chung. So I'm just going to pull up the first excerpt here so we can dive into it. When Bruce Lee's opponent, Chung, and his crew showed up, everyone greeted each other. Chung's side asked Wang Shenglong to act as the referee. He tried to rebuff them. I represent the Wing Chun school, but they insisted, praising his reputation for fairness. They were so sincere that I could hardly refuse them, remembers Wang. He called Chung and Bruce to the center of the 18 by 18 rooftop for instructions. A match must follow rules, even if it is a friendly match. You are all young people. You are not qualified to represent your clans. More importantly, this is not a duel. We have 2 rounds. One round will last 2 minutes. No matter whose side wins, the comparison will end after 2 rounds. Telling 2 teenagers that this is not a duel doesn't mean shit. Like you're fired up, you're hot, you're ready to go. If you're the referee, and I think the referee, I think he's an adult here. I forget if the referee is just like a random kid from one of the schools or like a third party school to not be biased, or it's an adult. But like, it doesn't matter who it is. If there are 2 kids fired up and I go, all right, you're about to try to kick the shit out of each other, but remember, this is just a game. We're not going too hard. This is not a duel. No one's going to die. I'm just clenching my teeth, nodding at the referee, going like, yeah, no, it's fine. I'm not going to fucking kill him. No, I'm not. I wasn't thinking that at all. Let's fucking go. Come on. Woo. And I'm just like fucking like chomping at the bit, fucking digging my feet in like I'm a bull about to charge this little twat in front of me. And what the referee is saying probably goes right over my head, and I try to fucking, nose tackle this guy on a rooftop in front of all my friends. So that's just how I would react, but I digress, and we go back to the story. We have 2 rounds. One round will last 2 minutes. No matter whose side wins, the comparison will end after 2 rounds. This is a friendly match. You should all aim at promoting friendship. Okay. Do you both understand what I mean? Bruce and Chung nodded. Yeah, I could just see that nod in the back. They're just like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Friendship. I'm going to fucking kill you. Bruce stood in the center in a Wing Chun stance. Left hand forward, right hand slightly back. So I guess Bruce Lee was the Wing Chun guy here. This is confusing because it's Wing Chun and he's fighting Chung. So forgive me for messing up the style that Bruce Lee is fighting, because ultimately later in his life he would kind of create his own style that mixed together like Wing Chun, Kung Fu, like a few different things, even dance. Like he incorporated dance moves into his own martial arts style. But yeah, so apparently Bruce stood in the center in a Wing Chun stance, left hand forward, right hand slightly back. Chung started circling Bruce until he saw an opening. He lunged forward with a roar and punched Bruce in the jaw, causing him to retreat in pain. Bruce's mouth was covered in blood. After circling some more, Chung lunged out again, striking Bruce in the left eye. Angry, Bruce slid forward in aggressiveness with an aggressive series of Wing Chun chain punches. But because he was not calm, his blows did not land decisively, and he left himself open to counter punches in the nose and cheek. As they, what are chain punches? I'm trying to, like, I'm just picturing just like fucking just like a rabbit punch fucking combination. Fucking, That's just like my, one sec, my headphones, punched out my headphones with my chain punches. That's how powerful those rabbit punches just were that I threw right there. That's the wind almost blew out the candle. That was dangerous. This is a hazard right here if I keep showing this much power on the podcast. But chain punches, not sure what those are, but because the chain punches he was not calm when he was landing the chain punches, when Bruce was landing these punches. The blows did not land decisively, and he left himself open to counter punches to his nose and cheek. As they exchanged wild swings, the timekeeper ended the round. From the damage to Bruce's face, it was clear to everyone he had lost the first round. "Lung," Bruce shouted at his cornerman. "Is my eye swollen?" "Yes," said Wang Shun Lung. He's just like, yeah, your eye's fucking closed, dude. I don't know what to tell you. "It's bruised. Your nose is bleeding also, but it's okay." He's like, yeah, your eye's fucked. Your nose still looks like shit, don't get me wrong, but it's not totally smashed like your eye. "My performance today is bad," Bruce said, shaking his head in frustration. "If I am hurt too badly, my father will notice it. I think we better take it as a draw and end the match now." "Bruce, if you do not continue in the second round, it means that you surrender. How can this be regarded as a draw?" Wang Shun Lung cajoled his reluctant fighter. "Good point, Wang Shun Lung. You are capable to fight on. Your opponent is wheezing now. If you withdraw, you will regret it. Whether you win or not is not important, but you must try your best. If you fight on, you will win." "I will win?" Bruce asked, his competitive nature battling against his fear of humiliation. "Lung, are you sure?" "Yes," Wang Shun Lung replied. "Why should I deceive you? Don't worry about your technique. This is a fight, not a performance. When you are close to him, step up and punch only his face. Do not worry whether you have been hit. Try to get close and attack. And be calm." Now, I give it to Bruce Lee to acknowledge that he's doing bad, because I'm thinking back to my baseball days. You know, I'm very washed up former college baseball player now, but back when I was in high school and college, when the game started to mean something, I would always trick myself into thinking that I was doing good, even when I was getting my ass handed to me. So I could go out in the first inning, give up 4 runs, get smacked around, give up a few doubles, a bomb. And while I'm performing, I walk into the dugout and I'm like, 4 runs, fuck it. We'll come back. We'll score some runs. We'll put some on the board. I'm going to get back. I'm going to hold them. I'm going to give the boys a chance. Like I would have all this positive self-talk going on in my head, not out of confidence, but out of a nervousness and an anxiety over confronting reality, which is, no, I'm doing fucking awful right now. I am the shittiest pitcher on the planet. And yeah, this is just not a good day. So I give Bruce Lee credit to be able to say in the moment, because it does take a lot as a competitor, as a competitor to be like, yeah, I don't have my fucking shit right now. I better turn it around, because so much of competition relies on this, you know, this mental confidence, this mental, I don't want to call it mental trickery, but like you are tricking yourself in a way to make yourself believe that you're better than you are, and you're hoping that on that day your ability supersedes the, you know, the expected, the normal expected ability, and you can somehow perform beyond that. Like that is why you know, when you practice, like when you're practicing, you try to do the harder things in practice, where, you know, you're figuring out in baseball, you're trying to hit your spots as a pitcher, you're trying to gain velocity, you're trying to pitch in game situations and inter squads and scrimmages, putting yourself at a disadvantage, so that when the actual game comes around, you're like, okay, I'm going to dig down deep and do the things that are hard that I've already done in practice. So now it's not that hard. Some days that's the way it goes. Other days your game is way worse than practice, and you get your ass handed to you, which it sounds like is what's happening in the first round of this Bruce Lee fight. So Shun Lung, his corner man, says, "Whether you win or not is not important, but you must try my best. If you fight on, you will win." "I will win?" Bruce asked, and his competitive nature battling against his fear of humiliation. "Lung, are you sure?" "Yes," Wang Lung Shung replied. Why should I deceive you? Don't worry about your technique. The fight is not a performance. When you are close to him, step up and only punch his face. Do not worry whether you have been hit. Try to get close and attack and be calm. Encouraged, Bruce nodded his head to show he understood as the timekeeper signaled the beginning of the second and final round. Bruce stood in the center of the rooftop with an air of composure he lacked in the first round. He feinted at Chung, causing him to jump back. Bruce smirked. He feinted again, making Chung jump again. Bruce grinned. The third time, Bruce faked an attack. Chung stepped back only a half step while throwing a right punch. Seeing his opponent off balance, Bruce made use of his opening and swiftly charged forward. His left punch slammed into Chung's face. Bruce took another step forward and smacked Chung with a right to the jaw so hard several of Chung's false teeth were knocked across the roof. Can you imagine that? Like the cinematography, like just like the real life moviness aspect, like the cinematic scene of you watching your boy fight someone on a roof, or maybe Bruce is your enemy because there were a bunch of people up there watching, and you see the guy who was just getting his ass kicked in the first round land a punch so goddamn hard that teeth go flying across the roof. The blood that's coming out of the mouth just spritz of red fluid splattering the top of the roof. The teeth hitting the pavement, and you could hear the crackle of the teeth sliding across the pavement. The people going like, oh, like just that seems like literally a movie. Like he's exhibiting the star power, like taking over the scene that, movie stars tend to do. It's like, no matter what the scene is, if, Brad Pitt walks in, he's going to fucking take over the scene. Bruce Lee is doing that in real life. Bruce Lee took another step forward and hit him with a right to the jaw so hard, several of Chung's false teeth were knocked across the roof. Blood gushed from Chung's mouth and his legs were wobbly as he stumbled backwards. With a yell, Bruce continued to rain heavy punches on Chung's face. Finally, Chung fell beside the water tank on the roof. Chung's friends ran forward to stop the match. Several of them criticized Wang Shenglong for not stopping it earlier. Bruce was overjoyed. He raised his hands in the air in victory. As soon as he arrived home with his black eye and busted lip, Bruce went into hiding for fear his father would find out. One of the servants gave him a hard-boiled egg to put on his eye to help reduce the swelling. When his little brother Robert asked if he was hurt, Bruce bragged, "These are just surface-level wounds on me. You should have seen the other guy. I sent a few of his teeth flying." So this is like a real-life example of the one time that someone was telling the truth when they say, "Oh, you should have seen the other guy, man. Oh, you're looking at my black eye? You should see the other guy, dude. He has 3 black eyes. It doesn't matter. Like, the human body only has 2, but I hit him so fucking hard, he got a 3rd black eye somehow." Every time someone says that, or almost every time, that person is lying. In Bruce Lee's case, he's actually telling the truth. He's like, yeah, my face got fucked up a little bit, but I literally knocked this dude's fucking teeth across the rooftop. You should see the other guy. I sent his teeth flying. In his diary, Bruce wrote, "Against Chinese boxer, student of Lung Chi Chuen." Okay, so I guess he was, the other guy was a boxer, 4 years training, it says, and then Bruce Lee was Wing Chun. Against Chinese boxer, student of Li Cheng Chuan, 4 years training, results, 1. In parentheses, that guy got fainted, 1 tooth got out, but I got a black eye. Unable to conceal his injury from his parents for long, his father blew up. He cursed his son for embarrassing the family and wasting his life with fighting. Phoebe recalls, "What I remember most clearly is that Bruce said to Dad, 'I'm not good at studying, but I'm good at fighting. I will fight to make a name.'" Details of the match quickly made their way back to Ip Man, whose reaction was very different from Bruce's father. He pulled Wang Shenglong aside to praise him. "If someday Bruce achieves something in the martial arts, it's because you didn't let him quit after the first round." Buoyed by his triumph, Bruce's confidence and fighting spirit increased. He became even more obsessed with Wing Chun. The contest taught him that success does not come naturally. One had to train and fight, says Wang Sheng Liang. Every day he practiced boxing, side kicks, wooden dummies, and so on. He had finished with all this so that he would sit down and meditate on what he had done. He trained himself in this way for a long time. So yeah, it is like these younger competitive moments are important in a person's life where you can step up and call upon your competitive spirit because you have been through it before. You have evidence of wanting to quit. You didn't quit. You stayed focused and you ended up winning. And, you know, I didn't have anything nearly as badass as knocking someone's teeth out in a rooftop fight in front of a packed crowd. But I did have an early experience where I was, you know, maybe in 8th or 9th grade. I was pitching. It was the first inning. I loaded the bases, you know, like no outs. And in my mind, I was like, like I'm about to give up 7 runs. Like any young pitcher knows, if you load the bases and you have no outs and you're the starting pitcher and it's the first fucking inning, you're like, I am fucked. Like it sucks. And for whatever reason, I was like, you know what? I'm going to choose to compete and not think about the future. I'm just going to take it one batter at a time. And I don't know where that came from. You know, I wasn't practicing that. I wasn't doing any sort of mental training. You know, the coach, you know, it was a typical mound visit where he's like, yeah, you know, just throw strikes. And I'm like, thanks, coach. You're a huge help. Thank you for telling me to throw strikes. I wasn't trying to do that the entire time before you walked out here. Really appreciate that. And for whatever reason, I just said, you know what? I'm going to flip a switch. I'm going to pitch in the present, and I'm just going to worry about the batter in the moment. I'm not going to think about all the bad shit that could happen loading the bases with no outs in the first inning. And then I ended up striking out the next batter, and then the batter after that, and then the batter after that. And being, you know, looking back on it, it does feel like a little bit like, you know, maybe like 10% of what Bruce Lee experienced. Like you feel like you're in a movie a little bit where like, I remember it started to rain. I struck out 3 batters. And then soon after that, the game got called and, you know, that was it. So the game didn't matter anyway, but I had that memory for my whole baseball career that I would think about sometimes where I'm like, I loaded the bases, I got out of it, and I struck out the side. And the way that I did that was just living in the moment. And it sounds like that's, you know, this experience for Bruce Lee was a big, you know, a big point, like something that he could call upon in the future as a reference point to, you know, I do have this ability. I have done this before. I am capable of this. So, you know, that's why I think it's a really cool, you know, really badass story. So the next part of the book that I want to get into is Bruce Lee smoking weed with Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen is a badass. You know, he was a movie star. I'm just going to look up his filmography page real quick for you guys because, you know, Steve McQueen was way before my time. But let's see. Steve McQueen. It was an American actor, anti-hero persona emphasized during the counterculture of the 1960s. Made top box office draw for his films in the 60s and 70s. He was nicknamed King of Cool and used the alias Harvey Mushman in motor races. He received an Academy Award for his role in The Sand Pebbles. His other films include The Cincinnati Kid, Nevada Smith, The Thomas Crown Affair, Bullet, Getaway, Papillon, Magnificent Seven, Great Escape, and Towering Inferno. In 1974, McQueen became the highest paid movie star in the world, although he did not act for a film for another 4 years. And this was, I believe, around the time when Steve McQueen was at his peak, or close to it, that Bruce Lee was fixating himself into the Hollywood realm. Like he got in with Hollywood, and he was training a lot of these guys to do martial arts on camera. Because it's one thing to know to fight, it's another thing to like make it look good and to be able to do it with precision and make it look believable. And so Bruce Lee was training a lot of these movie stars, which I believe is how he linked up originally with Steve McQueen. So I'm just going to pull up the Steve McQueen excerpt so we could go through that. So here we go. It was Steve McQueen who turned Bruce Lee onto marijuana. It quickly became his drug of choice, Puff the Magic Dragon. After a training session with one of his celebrity clients, Bruce would light a blunt and talk philosophy. He'd want to get high and have a ball, listen to music, James Coburn recalls. Blowing gold was one of his favorite things. That's blowing gold sounds a little gay, but you know, to be fair, sometimes, you know, in my highest states, my ego dissolves and so does my sexuality. So, you know, maybe blowing gold is a good nickname for marijuana, you know, because if you get high enough, who's not gay? You know what I mean? Who's straight when they're high? Not a lot of people. Blowing gold was one of his favorite things. Herb Jackson, one of Bruce's senior students, says Bruce kept a box of marijuana cigarettes in his garage. It was different and scary, Bruce said, of his first experience getting stoned. I was feeling pretty high when Steve gave me a cup of hot tea. As I placed the cup to my lips, it felt like a river gushing into my mouth. It was weird. Everything was so exaggerated. Even the damn noise from my slurping was so loud it sounded like splashing waves. When I got into my car and started to go, the street seemed like it was moving real fast toward me. The white center line just flew at me, and so did the telephone poles. You notice everything more sharply. You become aware of everything. To me, it was artificial awareness, but you know, this is what we're trying to reach in martial arts, the awareness, but in a more natural way. Better to get it through martial arts. It's more permanent. It doesn't make sense to be on pot all the time. I mean, the fact that Bruce Lee is this aware and this foresighted on the pot movement, where he's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be high all the time. I mean, weed is good to give you peaks into different forms of consciousness, but it's probably not good to, you know, just be constantly high. You know, there's like people, I feel like people are just starting to say this now or within the past decade that, like, with all the weed legalization in America, that, you know, people are, you know, overly positive on weed. And it's just like, I've got hair in my mouth. Sorry, guys. I think that was a piece of my mustache. But yeah, it's like, it feels like it's an overly positive weed culture right now because of the legalization. And it's, you know, you can walk into what's essentially a marijuana bakery and buy whatever edibles or flower or vapes that you want, which, you know, I think is largely a good thing, that people can get good sources and they have a better idea of what percentages they're buying and strains and stuff like that. But there's also this thing, like this vibe where it's like weed can do no wrong. And in my experience, I'll say that hasn't been the case. That I've had a darkness and a light in my relationship with weed, which that I've had some of the most fun times in my life on marijuana. And I've also had some of the darkest, most anxious times in my life on marijuana. And I think part of that is me viewing weed as like a drug that I don't have to respect. Like, it's not like a drug, you know, it's weed, man. Just like smoke the joint, have a good, and like the blunt is coming around and you take a puff every time it passes. And, you know, it's, you know, by the end of the night, you've taken like 36 puffs and you're high to your fucking mind. And if you only smoke once every couple months, then like you're not really enjoying it. You're just having a, borderline or full blown panic attack the entire time, which is what happened to me. I didn't respect it. So I would just, sit in a circle and, every time I passed, I would take a huge fucking rip and then I would have a panic attack, go away. And then after, 20, 30 or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, it would subside. And then I'd come back and I'd be like, well, I'm kind of enjoying myself now, and then I should probably not smoke that much next time. And the next time I would. So I feel like Bruce Lee was ahead of his time when it came to realizing that, like, even though I'm having, these meaningful experiences or like these altered conscious experiences on weed that could be useful, you shouldn't live like this. Like, it's not good to live like this. And as I'm saying it, there are people that are basically constantly high and they function in the world and they're fine. So it obviously doesn't apply to everyone. So I'm just speaking for me. But yeah, weed is, even though it's seen as sort of like a softer drug, it can have a real fucking bite to it, especially if you don't respect it. Bruce says, to me, it was an artificial awareness, but, this is what we're trying to reach in martial arts, the awareness, but in a more natural way. Better get it through martial arts. It's more permanent. It doesn't make sense to be on pot all the time. Joe Lewis recalls an anecdote that shows how marijuana helped Bruce socialize in this new environment. Hell, back in Hollywood, I saw Bruce doing dope right in front of me. One time he walked into my place and started passing out these huge joints the size of big cigars. I saw Bruce, I said Bruce rather. Bruce, that's not the way you do it. You just roll one little one and pass it around. He tells me no need to share. I want everyone to have their own. And he thumps his chest like he did in the movies, real big and proud. Everybody thought that was funny. That was Bruce. All right, Bruce to a T, but it's not like anybody thought there was anything wrong with that. It was the 60s and 70s. We thought it was innocent. Everyone was doing drugs. So as I just said, like, Bruce Lee realized the power of marijuana. Now he's pulling out fucking fat cigars at parties. And people are like, hey, can I get a rip of that? And he's like, no, I'll roll one for you. We're going to go to hell together. Breathe deep. So, I don't know. Maybe Bruce did not have as much respect for weed as I thought, or maybe he just had a different relationship with weed than I did, because that's also certainly possible. Not everyone has to share my experience, and I'm sure. I mean, you can't turn Bruce Lee down. If Bruce Lee's walking through a house party and he has a fucking blunt cigar the size of a baby's arm, and he says, "I'm gonna roll you your own baby's arm." You can't be like, nah, it's Bruce Lee. Fucking, I'm sucking that down. I'm having the highest panic attack of my life. And then, hopefully I come back and I don't wake up in an insane asylum. Hopefully it doesn't give me an early schizophrenic break and I can continue partying, and, live a good life and, tell people about the time I got high with Bruce Lee. But yeah, so he was smoking a lot of weed apparently. Everyone in the movie industry might have been doing drugs, but most martial artists, largely ex-servicemen, were not. To them, real men got drunk, not high. Judo Gene LaBelle remembers going over to Bruce's house for a lesson and becoming upset at all the pot smoke. I never went back to his house, he says, still angry after 50 years. When the topic of marijuana use was raised with Dan Inosanto, he looked down at his hands, shook his head and sighed. Bruce, it raises the consciousness level, but ever the loyal disciple, he felt he needed to add, I don't think Bruce was as much a user as people make it out to be. So there you go. Maybe he was just putting on a show, sort of like pumping his chest, like it says, being like, look at this fucking, the fattest blunt you've ever seen in your life. He was a showman, ultimately. That was part of the magic of Bruce Lee, is that he was not just a martial artist, he was a performer. He was able to put it all together. And yeah, I also find it funny when people who drink badmouth other drugs. Like people, 'cause now it's changing. Now society's more accepting. This applied probably more in the 70s and 80s when Bruce was alive. But there are still people who drink that look down upon other drug users. Like there are people who will drink, a fifth of whiskey a week, and then they'll look down on someone who occasionally trips Molly or does some blow or does some shrooms, smokes weed, whatever, like, because alcohol has somehow snuck through society as this anti-drug. Like, it gets you fucked up, but alcohol is, it's not considered a drug. Like, you're drinking, you're not fucking tripping out, but it fucks you up and it destroys, it is harmful. I fucking love drinking. I have 2 nice bottles of tequila on my desk right now over there, and I enjoy the shit out of drinking tequila, whiskey. I love sipping on a glass at the end of the day and just relaxing into that buzz. But I don't think that other people are somehow beneath me because they might smoke weed at the end of the day, or, they might fucking do kratom or whatever. Like, it's drinking fucks you up and it fucks your body up. And I know it's not good for you. And I enjoy it socially, and it is what it is. I'm not a man. I'm not like it says that the real men got drunk, not high. Like, some of the fucking manliest men in my life are fucking, they're not drinkers, but they are borderline psychonauts where they do things I don't have the balls to do, like take a heroic dose of mushrooms and blast off and search inside their soul, where, I'm like snacking on little microdoses of mushrooms because I'm too much of a pussy to take a full-blown dose. But that doesn't make me more of a man, because I'm like, yeah, but I'll fucking, I'll crush a bottle of tequila. I'll fucking show you where my nuts are at in this fucking bottle right here. Like, no, that doesn't mean shit. So yeah, Bruce said it raises the consciousness level, but ever the loyal disciple, he felt he needed to add, I don't think Bruce was as much a user as people make it out to be. Beyond its consciousness-raising appeal, Bruce's fondness for cannabis, at first, he used marijuana and later switched to hash. He may have involved an element of self-medication. Never Sits Still has been hyperactive and impulsive since his childhood. Never Sits Still. I think that was his nickname when he was a kid. So in quotes, it says, Never Sits Still has been hyperactive and impulsive since his childhood. Marijuana and hash seem to have served as a kind of chill pill. Bob Wall remembers working out with Bruce Lee at his Kowloon Tong home in Hong Kong in 1972. He was funnier than hell because the minute we were done, he would have a hash brownie, he says. We'd be philosophizing and talking away. He'd finish it. Immediately, I could almost see him chewing his fingers off. Then he'd go for another one. Because he couldn't sit, he'd be out the door. He was just fucking hyper like a motherfucker. But after 2 brownies, he was mellow. He became a normal human. God, what I would do to be in a philosophizing session, to just like, you go out with the boys at 2 a.m. Bruce Lee is out with you. You're drinking, you're smoking, and you get back to your apartment. You put on some music. Bruce Lee breaks out one of his baby arm blunts, and he just starts talking about martial arts. He starts talking about philosophy, living, ladies, because he was a ladies man. He broke the Asian stereotype early on, because he would go out and just be like, no, I'll fucking steal your bitch. I'll dance better than you, and then I'll beat your fucking ass and steal your girl. Bruce Lee was the OG Mr. Steal Your Girl, as an Asian man, which, went against all the Asian stereotypes. So I would love to just sit back and just be in the room, like whether I'm high, like whatever fucking drug I'm on, even if I'm just on the drug of Bruce, if I'm just listening to him just wax philosophy and wax life and poetry and just sit, whatever it is, like I just feel like it would be so unbelievable to be in the room and hear him speak. Like, he could be describing this can to me, and I feel like he would somehow find a way to make it interesting. Just describing the colors and the way it's put together and the aluminum and the purpose, and like, and part of that is also me just romanticizing Bruce Lee as a person, because so much of him is myth and legend. Which is why this book is great by Matthew Polly, because he, you know, really puts a lot of concrete stories into this. But I feel like it would be such a treat, like, and a treat is an understatement. Like, it would be a life-changing experience to just be in the same room as Bruce Lee and just, you know, knowing his legend today, to just sit back and listen and be like, I'm just going to shut the fuck up and I'm going to listen to Bruce Lee high as shit talk to me about life. So I wish I was there to experience some of that. The next part of the book, this is a little bit about Bruce Lee's training. So he, besides from training martial arts, Bruce Lee also had like a fucking nuts work ethic. And you don't get to where he is without his work ethic, without being willing to like go absolutely fucking crazy to maintain, you know, a borderline insane routine. So this is what Matthew Polly has to write on Bruce Lee's training. When it came to training, Bruce Lee was on the cutting edge of the fitness revolution. He was the first martial artist to train like a modern athlete. At that time, traditional stylists thought it was sufficient to repeat basic techniques as their primary form of exercise. It was a widespread view. Professional football players in the 1960s considered weightlifting to be dangerous and detrimental. Many NFL teams banned it. Bruce recognized that strength and conditioning were crucial to becoming the ultimate fighter. After his exhausting fight with Juan Man, Bruce redoubled his efforts to improve his endurance. An out-of-condition athlete, when tired, cannot perform well, Bruce explained. You can't throw your punches or kicks properly, and you can't get away from your opponent. From boxing, he borrowed skipping rope and road work. Every morning, he would run 4 or 5 miles through the neighborhood with his Great Dane, Bobo. Jogging is not only a form of exercise to me, Bruce said, it's also a form of relaxation. It's my own hour every morning when I can be alone with my thoughts. That is the fucking scariest thing in the world to me, is running without headphones. I saw someone in my gym the other week, and I even pointed this out to my wife. I was like, I just came from the gym, and there was this guy running on the treadmill for an hour without headphones, just staring off at the wall. That dude's a psychopath. And I was there. I had these same headphones on, and I was lifting weights. So I was going from station to station. And every time I would look over, this guy with no headphones was just fucking like, just looking right at the wall. And I was like, God damn, like there's a different type of person that could, and you know, maybe he forgot his headphones. Maybe he was like, I'm going to fucking kill myself. Maybe in his head, he's like, I'm going to end my life. This is the worst thing ever. I am never forgetting my headphones again. So it could have been the case. But for someone to willingly go out and run with nothing implies a certain mental strength to be able to battle your own thoughts and your own insecurities, because listening to music while running is a great way to remind yourself or to trick yourself into thinking that you're not tired. And when you don't have the music that's blasting louder than your anxieties and blasting louder than the negative voice inside your head telling you to stop, and that your calf is cramping and that you're fucking tired as shit. When you don't have that music or podcast or whatever it is, those voices start to take over and you're running and you're like, maybe I should stop. I'm 15 minutes in and I'm tired as shit. My calf feels like it's going to cramp up. I still have 40 minutes left to go. And, nothing else is here to distract me. This sucks. The music takes you away from that a little bit. So Bruce Lee just saying that jogging without any music for an hour every morning is a form of relaxation, like that's how Bruce Lee meditates. is just jogging like a psychopath tells you a little bit more about him. So yeah, he says, it's also a form of relaxation. It's my own hour every morning when I can be alone with my own thoughts. Since he was a teenager, Bruce had lifted weights, but he didn't become serious about it until his Oakland years. His students, James Yim Lee and Alan Joe, were pioneers in the early era of bodybuilding and showed him basic lifts and general exercises with weights. Bruce was interested in strength, not size. He wanted to be ripped but not bulky, recognizing that speed is more important than mass. James and I were into heavy weight training, Alan Joe says, but Bruce went with lighter weights with higher repetitions. In his garage, Bruce installed an isometric machine, squat rack, bench press, dumbbells, and a grip machine for his forearms. Bruce was a fanatic about training, and he had the free time to do it. As one of his LA students enviously noted, to Bruce, every day seemed like a weekend because he never had a steady job like most of us. From Monday to Sunday, he routinely did the same thing. He jogged in the morning and then sharpened his martial arts tools with 500 punches, 500 finger jabs, 500 kicks. What the fuck is a finger jab? Like, are you jabbing with your finger? Like, you're just poking out? Or are you, I'm picturing like that thing where you put your finger against the wall and you fucking like hit as hard as you can from a finger length away, and you try to generate power within 2.5 centimeters somehow to get any sort of power. But yeah, apparently he was doing 500 of those every single day. In the afternoon, he spent his time reading philosophy books in his library, calling up his agent or his pals. In the early evening, he lifted weights 3 nights per week. Even when he wasn't training, he was training. While watching TV, he curled dumbbells. While driving his car, he would repeatedly punch a small Makawara board, much to the distress and anxiety of his passengers. Can you imagine you're driving with Bruce Lee and he's got one hand on the steering wheel and he's like, hey, can you pull that board out for me in the glove compartment? And you're like, what? He's like, yeah, there's a wooden board in the glove compartment. Can you pull that out? And you're like, okay. And Bruce Lee's just got his left hand on the steering wheel. He's like, all right, hold that board up for me. And you're like, what are you gonna? And then he just starts going, frack, frack, frack. And he's just like, he's looking at the road, but he's also just frack, 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 just punching the shit out of that board. Like other people are crashing because they're looking at this guy just like punching a wooden board in the fucking driver's seat, like they're like, is that guy doing a Muay Thai lesson behind the driver's wheel? Like, what the fuck is going on? And you're just praying to God in the passenger seat that, you know, he doesn't like hit the board and get angry and then just fucking like slam the wheel and crash you both into a tree and or fucking like wrap around a pole. But yeah, you know, if my Uber driver did that, I wouldn't trust him. I would get out immediately. I would, you know, take my chances rolling out of the car. But if Bruce Lee was doing it, maybe I'd feel differently. Maybe I'd be like, yeah, it's fucking Bruce Lee. Of course, you know, he can do a kung fu lesson while he's driving on I-95. He's fine. He's Bruce Lee. So don't worry about it. He turned every activity into martial arts play. When I'm putting on my pants, Bruce said, I'm doing a balancing act. All of this exercise puts a tremendous strain on his fragile frame. I bet that got a little bit annoying being around Bruce Lee and he turns everything into martial arts. Like, you're just like, hey, Bruce, could you hand me the remote? And Bruce is like, yeah. And he gets up and he does like a fucking somersault over to the remote and he picks it up with his feet and he flings it back at your face and it just hits you in the forehead. And you're like, dude, what the fuck? Just get me the remote. And he's like, no, everything is play. Be water, be the remote, catch it with your face. And you're just like, what the fuck is happening here? And then, you know, you put on Netflix and then you're just getting high, smoking a baby arm blunt with Bruce Lee. So yeah. All of this exercise puts a just tremendous strain on his fragile frame. He spent hours every week practicing a rapid side kick even when his knees were hurting. As a result, his knees always made a clicking sound when he whipped his foot out. He sweated profusely as if constantly on the verge of overheating. Bruce always seemed to be wet. Even in an air-conditioned room, as soon as he gesticulated, he would quickly perspire, says Mito Uyehara. One night, he rode his exercise cycle for 45 minutes without stopping. When he got through, he was completely drenched. Even the floor beneath him was so wet it had to be mopped right away. To help his body recover, he used an electrical muscle stimulator machine. Karate champion Mike Stone, who learned about the device while teaching karate to the Los Angeles Rams football players, introduced Bruce to it. It's minor electric shock treatment that puts your muscles to put on your muscles to increase their pulse and repetition, Mike Stone says. The NFL used electro-stim machines to rebuild injured areas. Bruce believed it would enhance his skill and ability, but he went over the top. 1 to 10, he would crank the dial up to 7 or 8, enough to curl his hair. Bruce continued to use the electro-stim machine for the rest of his life, freaking out friends and colleagues, particularly the Chinese in Hong Kong. When I got to the door in his office, I didn't dare go in, because he was wearing a headband with a bunch of electrical cables attached to it, recalls Bolo Young, the beefy bad guy in Enter the Dragon, Bolo Young. My immediate reaction was, are you crazy? Could you imagine knocking on Bruce Lee's door and he's like, yeah, oh, come in. And you're like, are you okay? And you open the door and he's just like, yeah, it's fine. It's just the electro-stim machine. Oh, fuck, that's high. Oh, God. And his hair's just sticking up. His limbs are fucking flying over the place. Like, yeah, what did you want to talk about? Oh my fucking God. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Oh my God, I'm Bruce Lee. Oh. You're just like, yeah, maybe you should turn that down a little bit. Maybe use it sexually, take a break, put it on your nutsack, start low, instead of pain, go pleasure for a little bit. Try stroking it out with the stimulation on different parts of the body, maybe on the sexual organs. Maybe that would open something up. Who knows? But who am I to doubt, Bruce Lee's electro-stim efforts? I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and finish the last couple excerpts that I picked out from Bruce Lee, A Life by Matthew Polly. So we are back. This next part is actually not from the book by Matthew Polly, but this is something that we spoke about on the podcast, is the cocaine letters that Bruce wrote about coke and other drugs. And this is something I thought would be interesting to get into. So here's a little bit of the background on some of these cocaine letters by Bruce Lee to Bob Baker. So the background is that Robert Baker was a friend of Bruce Lee, as well as his cannabis and cocaine supplier. Lee gave Baker the role of Petrov in Fist of Fury, and in return for all of his drug favors. Baker studied Jeet Kune Do under James Yim Lee. In 2021, Baker's daughter put all of Lee's letters to her father up for auction, and I guess that's how they got out, because this was something that happened in the last few years. So yeah, Bruce Lee was apparently writing cocaine letters, or just writing letters to this guy, Bob Baker, his supplier, about cocaine and other drugs. And we're going to get into that. And some of it is difficult to read, so bear with me, because I'm reading these. These are screenshots of the original letters from Bruce Lee. So it's in his handwriting. And yeah, let's get into it. So he says, Bob, this is Bruce writing, Bob, airmail me some Coca-Cola. Do it the way you and I sincerely feel, in other and whatever. Be cool about the package. Same procedure. Quality, man. What more can I say? But I care for you. Be careful and take good care. Love and peace, Bruce. P.S. My directorial is on its way to shatter my last picture. Your thoughts? I know. How do you feel about it? Question mark. So yeah, Bruce Lee, he's like, yeah, airmail me that good Coca-Cola, brother. Get that to me real quick. Quality. Same procedures last time. I don't know why I'm doing a fucking Confederate accent for Bruce Lee, but he apparently he would just like, either get high on coke, or do it when he needed more coke, or both, and just like write out these letters. And some of them are borderline romantic. Like obviously, Bruce wasn't having romantic relations with his dealer, but like the way, like just writing a letter to your drug dealer. This is something that no one who's under the age of, 50 or 60, 70 can identify with, because you barely even have to fucking text your drug dealer anymore. There's apps where you can do this, these untraceable apps where you just, you put in an order and then someone shows up at your door with blow or weed or whatever the fuck it is in a city like New York. Back in the day, you either had to call people or write letters. And Bruce Lee apparently was like, I'm going to break out my pen, my feather pen, and I'm going to fucking write some letters to my drug dealer, fucking old school style, and get me some drugs. And that's what he chose to do. There's another one that says, Bob, Cooley, send some coke. How's everything? Stoned as hell. Send some coke. How's everything? Stoned as hell. Rub and working on the up and coming character. Some coke would help in the foundation of what I would create, or what I would want to create. So, and then he signs it to the big brother, Bruce. So yeah, apparently Bruce, working on a character, thinks some cocaine would help him get into character. I don't know how good cocaine would be for a martial arts movie, which I'm assuming this character is in, because your heart rate's already through the roof when you're performing martial arts. Like even as good shape that Bruce Lee was in, even he had to have an elevated heart rate during these scenes where he's on camera. He's doing, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 takes of the same fight scene, trying to get everything perfect. Like he's even got to have an elevated heart rate. Like, and just thinking about doing blow to get ready, whether it's, to practice the scene or to do it on set. Like I couldn't imagine the panic attack I would have, like working out on cocaine. Like the 10 or 12 times that I've been on coke over the course of a decade, I'm like half of that time is spent talking my anxiety down of like, you're okay, you're not gonna have a heart attack, you're not gonna die, maybe you will die, if there's fentanyl in it, you're gonna fucking pass out, you're not gonna wake up, and all your friends are gonna die too, because you all did the same bat. Like all these things, which now are legitimate concerns, which is part of the reason I stopped doing street drugs, is because, of the whole fentanyl shit, like testing it. How can you really be sure? But Bruce Lee apparently was like, this is way before all you had to worry about your drugs being contaminated with fentanyl. This is the fucking 70s and 80s. The good shit. The fucking Miami, fucking straight off the boat, Colombia, going from, Colombia to Miami to LA to New York. You're getting fucking good shit before everyone got in the game, started chopping shit up, and all these, warring cartels. There were the Mexican cartels, the Colombian cartels, and there were a few that were at war back in the day, but they got you that good shit. And this was what Bruce Lee was huffing on. And, back in the day, I'm sure the coke was a lot different. I'm sure it was a lot different experience than fucking scraping gasoline out of an alley in New York as you're taking a piss outside a club. Like I'm sure, you know, it was a different experience, not only socially, but also psychologically, like what it did to you. So yeah, he's using cocaine to prepare for roles. There's another one where he says, Bob, play it safe. As for the cost, let me know. And I'll send you the money, order by airmail, something. You should go see James if you can. Be kind. Be kind of gambler. Allow your this one's hard to read. I state the new need some support. Something. Okay, here we go. Bruce. P.S. This is still Bruce writing. If you have access to any psilocybin, send a little together with info on how to take it. Heard about in it a book, or heard about it in a book. Love to Bev and the kids, Sunshine and Chat. There's something funny about like being like, yeah, get me some Coke, you know, get me some mushrooms, give me the fucking kitchen sink of drugs, send it by airmail, give me instructions how to do it. Also, say hi to the kids for me. Hope they're doing well. Bruce Lee, thank you very much. Let's go through a couple more. Bob, I'm in the process of getting into a new script. This one will precede Enter the Dragon. Should everything work out, production should start within the week or so. Location, Japan. Still am in the process of adapting to life here. By the way, what is the advice on the possibility of shipping some Coke to me? I do love his style where like he's he's not only texting his dealer, or not he's not only writing his dealer like, you know, get me Coke. This is how much I need. You know, here's the money on fucking, you know, Venmo. Here's the cash, which is what it largely is today. It's like, you know, here's what I need. You limit communication. You know, the dealer comes, he drops it off. And, you know, it's like fucking Grubhub. You leave it. They ring the doorbell. They leave it somewhere. You get in, you get out. It's done. You got your drugs. Here, he's like, Bob, here's what I've been doing the last few weeks. I'm currently getting in the right mindset to prepare for this script. It precedes Enter the Dragon. I'm feeling okay about it. I'm feeling a little bit anxious. The sets in Japan haven't really filmed in this environment before. I hope everything's going well with you and the kids, and that they're starting second grade, and that everything is in order, and that you're feeling good, and that you're feeling like a unit as a family. By the way, could you please send me some Coke, Bruce? I love how he fills in. He's not just taking, but he's giving as well. He's saying, this is what I'm up to. This is how my life is going. Hope things are good with you. Hope things are good with the kids. Let me know how things are for you. Really want to hear about it. And also, here's my order at the end. And, you know, let me know if you could get that to me. So, you know, appreciate that. If I was the drug dealer, I'd be like, damn, he not only does he want the drugs, but he wants to communicate. He wants to know about me, and he wants me to know about him. That must feel good. Well, this is the last one we go through, because there's like 5 or 6 more on this page. Bob, I'm planning to come to the States in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, but can stay only for a week. Regarding the good, you can send regarding the goods in quotations. Love that. Regarding the goods, Bob, you can send them in a package addressed to me, to Mr. Weenam and Golden Harvest Studio, Yangtang Building Road, some addresses. And then he says, 1 Coke in larger amount. I love how he's like, there's not a direct measurement. He's not like half a kilo, 100 grams for the studio. He's just like, Coke, a shit ton in a larger amount. Something, you know, about like a mountain pile on a desk in a package. You could send me that. 2 acid in parentheses, he says, in this something that I can't read, 3, hash or grass, in parentheses, the former can be the latter, even closed, carefully packed, and to what you put the love with you, you're better inside the book, clothings. Also, when I come, I would like to have more goodies ready for shipping, including finding me a really classy Derringer. Is a Derringer a gun? Pretty sure a Derringer is a gun. Yeah, a small handgun. A Derringer is a small handgun that is neither a revolver, a semi-automatic pistol, nor a machine pistol. It is not to be confused with the mini revolvers or pocket. It is the smallest, most powerful personal protection you can carry. So yeah, Bruce is really stepping up his game here. He's like, by the way, I will take a small handgun with my next drug shipment if you have it, if it's no trouble for you, Bob. Including finding me a really classy Derringer from shops, collection, or whatnot. Also, find me a Kobag holster or something holster for my 45 fast draw. Okay, so he sounds like he has a few guns already. All these after I come for you sending, all these send right away. So send them something, blah, 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 to another address. So yeah, Bruce, what I was talking about before in the podcast, where he engaged in the darker aspects of his being, you know, guns, drugs. These letters are a window into the side of Bruce Lee that doesn't really get talked about that much, which, you know, he wasn't just smoking weed. He was experimenting with acid. He was experimenting with coke. He was, you know, shooting guns, which makes sense because he was working with Hollywood actors, and a lot of the martial arts movies incorporate guns and handguns. So it probably, you know, he used a lot of those as props and, you know, working in the guns to the martial arts sequences. But yeah, it's a really cool insight into the humanization of Bruce Lee's psyche. Because like you think of Bruce Lee as like this hero, legend, mythical figure. And it's like, no, he had a side of him where he's like, I'm going to fucking, you know, I'm going to do some coke and I'm going to write letters and I'm going to fire off my fucking Derringer. And I'm going to indulge in the darker aspect of my being. And he did that. And that was Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is the same person that people look up to, that, you know, he went on talk shows and talked about philosophy and be water and have mental stillness and control over your emotions. And he was also railing fat lines with Hollywood stars and experimenting with them. And, you know, I hold nothing against him for that, because I did the same thing, and I will probably continue to do similar things, trying different drugs throughout my life in a safe manner to explore different parts of my consciousness and to have fun, or do both. And Bruce Lee was a human being who wanted to explore. It's a human nature to want to get into those types of experiences. So the last thing I want to talk about is what Matthew Polly writes about Bruce Lee's legacy. Because I think this is really cool. This is at the end of the book, and it gives you sort of an overview of what Bruce Lee, you know, sort of accomplished in his life. Before that, actually, I just remembered there's a photo in the book that shows a letter that Bruce Lee wrote to himself. It was like this life goal, overarching life goal of what he wanted to accomplish. And I think he wrote this when so Bruce's life goal from January 1969. So I'm just going to look up how old Bruce Lee was then. So yeah, he was 29 years old. So this is not long before he died, because he died at 32. But he wrote out a life goal letter for himself. He wrote, "My definite chief aim. I, Bruce Lee, will be the first highest paid, Oriental superstar in the United States. In return, I will give the most exciting performances and render the best of quality in the capacity of an actor. Starting in 1970, I will achieve world fame, and from then onward till the end of 1980, I will have in my possession $10 million. I will live the way I please, and I achieve inner harmony. I will live the way I please and achieve inner harmony and happiness. Signed, Bruce Lee, January 1969. So, I mean, he fucking did, it sounds like most, if not all of that. I don't know what his net worth was when he died, but I know he wasn't getting paid as much as the white actors because he was Asian and that was just not a thing at that time. You're not going to get paid as much as an Asian martial artist on screen, but I'm sure he made a good amount of money. He was really fucking famous by the time he died, and he was, way above expectations in quality on screen. So it's really cool to have sort of this honest future self depiction in letter form from Bruce Lee, because like a lot of people don't do that. I have my aims in the back of my head. So like what I want to achieve in podcasting, a general net worth of what I would need to do the things I want to do and have fun in life and give back and, provide for my family. But I haven't written out a formal thing where I go, okay, I'm going to reach the upper echelon of podcasting by 2032, and I will acquire the net worth of $15 million, and I will get 100 million streams. And like I just haven't thought in that form of concreteness. And you could just see, like, Bruce Lee was, it wasn't an accident. He was constantly thinking about these things, writing them down, living them, and then, being them, like, being the things that he would tell himself he would be, and then some. So that's really fucking cool. And then the last thing I want to read, I have it here, is what Matthew Polly wrote about Bruce Lee's legacy. And this is at the end of the book. I'm just going to pull up that excerpt here. So, all right. Bruce Lee's legacy. So here we go. For decades, the Hong Kong government ignored its most famous son. The Kung Fu star was not considered highbrow enough for a colony anxious about its self-image. Lobbying efforts by fans to turn his former home in Kowloon Tong, which was operating as a rent-by-hour love motel, into a museum came to naught. In frustration, the Bruce Lee fan club raised $100,000 to construct a statue of Lee in a pose from Fists of Fury. Under pressure, officials finally agreed to place it on the Avenue of Stars, a tourist attraction on the city's harborfront. Robert Lee helped unveil the 8-foot bronze statue of his big brother on November 27, 2005, celebrating what would have been Bruce's 65th birthday. It was a belated recognition of Bruce Lee's remarkable achievements during his short life and lasting cultural impact since his death. He was 32 when he died. Jesus fucking Christ. In America, where Chinese actors were mostly relegated to meek houseboy roles like Hop Sing and Bonanza, Bruce Lee overcame every obstacle in his ambition to break Hollywood's yellow glass ceiling. He became the first Chinese American male to star in a Hollywood movie and the first Asian since the advent of sound. It took a quarter of a century before another Chinese actor, Jackie Chan, was able to repeat this extraordinary feat. A quarter of a fucking century. That is insane. The first Chinese American male actor in a Hollywood movie and the first Asian since the advent of sound. The first Asian. Like, that, I can't even believe, like, no one between Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, who was Asian starred in a Hollywood movie, or maybe Chinese American male is what they're referring to. But still, like, how many Chinese guys? China has a fucking over 1 billion people. How many people in China can act, and can play a part, not just in martial arts movies, but just in general? And it took 25 years since Bruce Lee for Jackie Chan to appear as a stud. I didn't realize it was that big of a gap. I thought Jackie Chan was starring in Hollywood movies pretty soon after Bruce Lee passed away, or like there would have been someone else starring in Hollywood movies, like another Chinese actor, but apparently not. Apparently fucking, this is, it's such a white thing to say. Like, apparently they're limiting other races in Hollywood. Apparently, like, Asians are not getting the shots they deserve in Hollywood. Have you heard this? This is fucking crazy. But yeah, it was a long break between that, apparently. 25 fucking years. Bruce Lee's films launched an entirely new Chinese archetype into Western popular culture, the Kung Fu master. Prior to Bruce, it was only Fu Manchu, the yellow. Oh my God, I just did. That was completely on accident. The yellow peril villain. I did not mean to do a stereotypical Asian accent to say yellow. The yellow peril villain and Charlie Chan, the model minority. These two tired representations reinforced the stereotype of the Chinese male as submissive, non-aggressive, and physically and sexually inferior, weak and sniveling, wily but never openly confrontational, effeminate, sexless, or gay. Smashing this emasculated image, Lee constructed a masculinity that was physically superior, excessively violent, and sexually enticing. He was the first Asian American actor to embody the classic Hollywood definition of a star. Men wanted to be him and women wanted to be with him. With his cocky smile, come fight me hand gestures, and graceful but deadly moves, the chiseled Lee gave Chinese guys balls. His pugnacious performance in Enter the Dragon immediately transformed Western perceptions of Asians. We lived in Alameda near Oakland, where the Black Panthers came from, recalls Leon J., a prominent martial arts instructor. Before Enter the Dragon, it was, hey, chink. And after Bruce Lee's movies came out, it was like, hey, brother. Even people who didn't like Bruce Lee concede the influence his films had. He was a self-centered asshole, says Mark Chow, Ruby Chow's son. One thing the guy's done, though, is that nobody takes lunch money away from Chinese kids anymore because they assume they won't fight back. So that's an example of positive racism right there. It's like, because, in a large part because of Bruce Lee, other kids, other like white kids or black kids, other races besides Asians were like, we're not going to fuck with the Chinese kids anymore because all of them are proficient in martial arts. Even though it's probably like 5 to 10% of them. If you were Chinese after a Bruce Lee movie came out, people would just assume that you would kick the shit out of him. And maybe you could. But, also you could have just been a Chinese guy that didn't know shit about fighting. But that worked. The positive racism works in your favor. You looked Chinese. You got the benefit of the doubt that you were going to fucking, kick someone's ass. And that, you avoided some fights. I feel like we need to, the Asian stereotype of Kung Fu has worn off a little bit. Now it's like you see a black guy and you just assume like the black guy's going to kick the white guy's ass. I feel like the Asians need to make a resurgence because now it's kind of like, there hasn't been like a fucking Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Kung Fu Asian centerman film in a while, at least not in Hollywood. Like, I'm just gonna say it. If there's a black guy and an Asian guy, I'd rather fight the Asian guy. And maybe if there was the next generation Jackie Chan that released a movie, and I saw that, maybe I'd be like, you're right, I'll take the black guy because Asians can still fucking bring it. But that's just my me being a fucking white dude. Lash, internalize racism. Lash. One more. Lash. Ah, shit. God, Robin DiAngelo would be so proud. His pugnacious performance. Oh no, we were past that. Yeah. So one thing the guy's done though is that nobody takes lunch money away from Chinese kids anymore because they assume they won't fight back. As a result, Bruce's films helped change Asian self-perception. If Bruce could defeat Chuck Norris on film, maybe they could do something similar in real life. Lee's popularity helped inspire the Asian American movement in the 1970s, which called for racial equality, social justice, and political empowerment. In Asia, his films presaged the rise of more muscular and confident Hong Kong, Taiwan, and eventually China. The Chinese were no longer the sick men of Asia. They were a superpower. Lee transformed Western filmmaking. He introduced an entirely new genre, the kung fu film, which continues to thrive as evidenced by The Matrix, Kill Bill, and John Wick. His impact was even greater on fighting choreography. Enter the Dragon not only changed who could star in action movies, but how our heroes fought. Gone was the John Wayne punch. After Enter the Dragon, we required every action star from Batman to Sherlock Holmes, from Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon to Matt Damon in The Bourne Identity, to be a martial arts master, as skilled with his feet as with his fists. If you guys go back and look at movies before Bruce Lee came into Hollywood and he started training all the big Hollywood stars and eventually starring in movies of his own, fight scenes fucking sucked. They sucked ass. It was so obvious. You go back and watch Star Trek, the punches are nowhere near the people's faces. The kicks are 2 feet away from the body. The choreography is terrible. It is not convincing at all. And then Bruce Lee comes around and he's like, no, you have to you have to make it look real. You have to manipulate your body and manipulate the strikes, and you have to get close. And sometimes people got hit. Like, there are stories in the book that we didn't talk about where like Bruce would get in confrontations with other stuntmen on set because he would want it to be like really fucking close. And sometimes when you're trying to get really close to someone, you accidentally hit them, and that would cause a lot of tension on set because you had a lot of the old hierarchy of the way stunts used to be. And then you had Bruce Lee coming in basically saying, no, all you guys fucking suck. It looks like shit on screen. Let me come in and change everything. And it's, this 27-year-old Asian guy from Hong Kong saying, you're wrong, I'm right. And he came in and he changed martial arts movies forever. And he's a huge part of the reason why, like Matthew Polly says, John Wick looks the way that it does. Why, Lethal Weapon looks the way that it does. Why when Matt Damon throws punches in Bourne Identity, it looks fucking real. And it's not an obvious, that was, 2 feet away from the face. And then the guy started falling before he even got hit. Like it looks and it feels fucking like it's actually happening. It's convincing. You don't lose connection to the film because it looks fake. You feel more connected to it because you're like, oh shit, this is incredible. The sequence actually takes skill and beauty, and it shines on screen. So yeah, the Bourne Identity, to be a martial arts master, as skilled with his feet. Bruce Lee is as skilled with his feet as he is with his fist. They, referring to future Hollywood actors, also need to be ripped. Bruce Lee popularized the physical fitness movement. Prior to his films, barrel chests were the masculine ideal. Afterward, Hollywood action heroes first flirted with the pumped, steroidal look of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone before returning to the shredded six-pack physicality Lee embodied. Bruce was not simply an entertainer, he was an evangelist. Through the popular medium of films, he single-handedly introduced more people to Asian culture than any other person in history. Because of Bruce, millions of Westerners looked up to martial arts. Every town in America had a church and a beauty parlor, said Fred Weintraub. After Enter the Dragon, there was a church, a beauty parlor, and a karate studio with a picture of Bruce Lee. Many devoted martial arts students went on to explore the Chinese philosophical underpinnings of their styles. Taoist terms like yin and yang entered the lexicon. Ultimate Fighting Championship promoter Dana White has called Bruce Lee the godfather of mixed martial arts. Certainly, the sport could never have succeeded without the incredible burst in popularity Lee inspired. Jeet Kune Do was an early but hybrid experiment in martial arts cross-training. His pragmatic philosophical approach undergirds the sport. Quote, adapt what is useful, reject what is useless, and add specifically what is your own. Bruce put the mixed into martial arts. Bruce put the mixed into mixed martial arts. But perhaps the most important in this age of polarization and ethnic strife is the example he set and espoused. As a Eurasian, he faced discrimination from both sides of the East and West divide. He never let it stop him. Instead, he preached a message of post-racial unity. I think of myself as a human being because under the sky there is but one family, Bruce said. It just so happens that people are different. As he practiced it, he accepted anyone who wanted to learn from him. His first student in America was Jesse Glover. If he felt you were sincere, Bruce taught you, Taki Kimura recalls, he didn't care what race you were. The Hong Kong statue of Bruce Lee was second erected in the world. The first was unveiled a day earlier on, of all places, the city of Mostar in Bosnia-Herzegovina. During the Yugoslav Civil War in the 1990s, Mostar became bitterly divided between Catholic Croats on the west side of town and the Muslim Bosniaks on the east side. After hostility officially ended, the city decided to erect a new peace memorial. Bruce Lee was chosen over rival nominees, including the Pope and Gandhi, after a poll of residents revealed that he was the only person respected by both sides as a symbol of solidarity, justice, and racial harmony. We will always be Muslims, Serbs, or Croats, said Veselin Gatalo of the youth group Urban Movement Mostar. But one thing we all have in common is Bruce Lee. That's the power of Bruce Lee, that after a civil war, the options of putting up a unity statue were Gandhi, the Pope, and people were like, fuck that. I want Bruce Lee. That is incredible. And the fact that Bruce Lee was, not only way before his time in martial arts and philosophy, fitness, but also just the way he treated people. Like, yeah, people are different, but who gives a fuck if you're willing to put in the work? We're human beings under the sky. There's but one family. It just so happens that people are different. That notion is so before its time, or so it was of that time rather, because Martin Luther King Jr. was before Bruce Lee, and then came Bruce Lee, and it seems like we've went backwards in a sense where people are starting to identify more by their race or by their gender and work backwards from that, like reverse engineer the way you think you should be treated based on how you look or how you feel, rather than recognizing that people are human beings and that the way you should be treated it should be based on not how you look or feel, but on the way you treat other people, the work that you put in. And, it's that simple. So I want to wrap this up by saying that Bruce Lee had a massive impact on my life. He, reading this book, like I said, I'll go back to this probably like 2 or 3 times a month. I'll just open it up and read a page from it, and it'll speak to me in some way where I'm trying to figure something out, whether it's podcasting or working out or some issue about life. And then something that Bruce Lee said or a piece of his life written on the pages by Matthew Polly somehow speaks to what I'm going through and applies in that way. So I hope that this book can do something similar for you. Thank you for listening to this long ass rant on the life of Bruce Lee. Go check out Bruce Lee, A Life by Matthew Polly, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.